The old signal came from nowhere. Commander Harin sat in her chair on the bridge of the human ship Dauntless. The ship was big and gray, floating in the dark space between stars. They had been out here for 6 months, looking for new worlds to explore. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. "Commander," said the communications officer, "we're getting something strange." Harin looked up from her coffee. The coffee was cold and bitter like everything else on long space missions. "What kind of strange?" "It's a distress call." "But it's old, really old." Harin walked over to the communication station. The screen showed waves of light dancing up and down. The signal was weak, like a whisper in a storm. "How old?" she asked. The officer looked confused. "The computer says it's been traveling through space for over 4,000 years. Harin stared at the screen. 4,000 years was longer than humans had been in space. Much longer. "That's impossible. Run it again." The officer pressed buttons. The same result came up. 4,000 years. What does it say? Harin asked. "That's the weird part. It's in a language the computer barely knows, but listen to this." The bridge speakers crackled to life. A voice spoke in words that sounded almost human, but not quite. The computer's translation came after each sentence. "To the humans who helped us long ago. The devourers have come back. They are eating our worlds. If any humans still live, we ask for help. We remember your promise. Come to the Ashara system. Please hurry." The bridge went quiet. Harin felt a chill run down her back. "Who sent this?" she asked. "Someone called the Eleni. Never heard of them." Harin hadn't either. But something about the message made her stomach tight. It sounded real. It sounded scared. "Set course for the Ashara system," she said. "Commander, that's 3 days away. And we don't know what we'll find. We'll find out what sent that message." Far away, in the Ashara system, the Eleni were dying. Their world was beautiful. It was a giant ball of gas and clouds, with crystal. Cities floating in the sky. The cities were made of glass that sang in the wind. The Eleni lived in peace. They had for thousands of years, but now dark ships filled the sky. The ships were wrong. They looked like they were made of bones and metal, mixed together. They moved like living things, but they were clearly machines. They were huge, bigger than the crystal cities inside the largest city. Elder Voss looked up at the dark ships through the glass ceiling. His people were running and screaming. The beautiful songs of their crystal homes had turned into sounds of fear. "Send the message again," he told his assistant. "Send it to every star." "Elder, we have sent it 100 times. No one is coming." "Then send it 100 more times." "The humans promised. They will come." The assistant looked sad. "Elder, that was so long ago." "Maybe there are no humans left." Voss closed his eyes. He was old, even for an Eleni. He remembered the stories his grandmother told him. Stories of the fierce humans who had helped them escape the devourers long ago. Stories of promises made under alien stars. "They will come," he said again. But his voice was quieter now. Above them, the dark ships opened their bellies. Things fell out. They were not bombs. They were worse. They were harvesters. The harvesters looked like giant insects mixed with machines. They had too many legs and too many eyes. They landed on the crystal cities and began to eat. Not just the buildings. The people too. Voss watched his world die. But he kept sending the message. On the human ship Dauntless, Harin was getting worried. They had been traveling for 2 days toward the Ashara system. The old signal was getting stronger, but so was something else. Something dark. "Commander," said the scanner officer, "I'm reading ships ahead. Lots of them. What kind of ships? I don't know. They're not in our database, but they're big, really big." Harin looked at the screen. She could see dots of light moving around a distant star. "Too many dots to count. Can you identify them?" "No, but—" "Commander, they're destroying something. I'm reading explosions." "Lots of them." Harin's stomach dropped. "The Eleni?" "I think." "So, how long until we get there? 6 hours?" Harin knew that was too long. But she had to try, all speed ahead. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them what we found. What should I say? Harin thought for a moment. Tell them the old signal was real. Tell them someone is killing the people who sent it. The message traveled back toward Earth at the speed of light. It would take weeks to get there, but when it arrived, it would wake something up. Something that had been sleeping in human computers for a very long time. On Earth, deep under the moon, old machines began to turn on. Files that had been locked away for centuries started to open. And in those files were secrets that would change everything, but Harin didn't know that yet. She only knew that she was flying toward a battle she couldn't win. When the Dauntless reached the Ashara system, it was almost over. The beautiful crystal cities were falling from the sky like broken glass. The dark ships were everywhere, feeding on the wreckage. "My God," whispered the scanner officer. Harin saw it too. The Eleni homeworld was dying. The clouds that had been white and silver were now red and black. The crystal cities were cracked and bleeding light. "Are there any survivors?" she asked. Scanning ... Yes, I'm reading life signs in the planets' core, but not many. And the dark ships? Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. "Commander, they're turning toward us." Harin looked at the screen. The dark ships were moving like a school of fish, all turning at once. They had noticed the Dauntless. "We need to get out of here," said her second officer. "Not yet." "Can we get a message to the survivors?" "I'll try." The communications officer worked quickly. After a few minutes, a weak voice came through the speakers. It was old and tired. "Human ship, this is Elder Voss. You actually came. We got your message," Harin said. "We're here to help. It's too late for us. But you must warn your people. The Devourers remember you. They remember the human sent. They have been waiting for you to return." "Return? What do you mean? You don't know, do you? You don't remember what you are." The dark ships were getting closer. Harin could see them clearly now. They were horrible, like nightmares made. "Real, we have to go," she said. "Come with us." "I cannot. My people need me." "But listen carefully, human. The Devourers have been preparing for 4,000 years. They have weapons made just for you. They know how you fight. They know how you think. Then how do we beat them?" Elder Voss was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was strange, almost hopeful. "You will remember. When the time comes, you will remember what you really are. The fire in your blood will wake up. And when it does, the Devourers will learn why they were right to fear you." The line went dead. The dark ships were almost on top of them. "Get us out of here," Harin ordered. The Dauntless turned and ran. Behind them, the last of the crystal cities fell from the sky. The Eleni were gone, but their message had been heard. And across human space, old machines were waking up. The fire Elder Voss had spoken of was starting to burn. The Devourers had returned, but they had made one mistake. They had reminded humanity what they were capable of. Admiral Jinha was drinking his morning coffee when the universe changed. He was sitting in his office on Earth's biggest space station. Outside the window, he could see ships coming and going. Big cargo ships, small fighters, and everything in between. It was a normal day in human space. Then his computer started screaming. Red lights flashed across his desk. Emergency signals came from every direction. Jinha had never seen anything like it. "Sir," his assistant ran into the room. "You need to see this right now." Jinha followed her to the main control room. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps, but something was wrong. New signals were appearing everywhere. Old signals that had been sleeping for thousands of years. "What am I looking at?" Jinha asked. "The Luna archives, sir. The deep storage under the moon. Files are opening by themselves." "Files we didn't even know existed." Jinha stared at the screens. The Luna archives held humanity's oldest records. But these files were older than anything they had ever found. "Show me," he said. The main screen changed. Ancient text appeared, written in languages that looked almost human but weren't quite right. The computer was trying to translate it, but it was struggling. "Sir, this text talks about humans, but it says we came from somewhere else, somewhere far away." Jinha felt cold. "That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth." That's what we always thought, but look at this. The screen showed a star map, but it wasn't a map of human space. It was a map of another galaxy far away, and on that map, marked in red, was a world labeled Human Homeworld, destroyed. This has to be a mistake, Jinha said, but more files kept opening. Stories of great wars. Stories of a species called the Kethmori, who ate entire worlds. Stories of humans fighting and losing and running away, and stories of promises made to those who helped them escape. Sir, said another officer, we're getting reports from the Outer Rim. Commander Harin's ship sent a message before they went dark. Something about devourers attacking peaceful aliens. Jinha's blood went cold. Devourers? Yes, sir. And the aliens called them something else. They called them Kethmori. The room went silent. Everyone was looking at the ancient files then. At Jinha, then back at the files. Get me Captain Quan, Jinha said. Tell him to prepare the fastest ships we have. We're going to the Outer Rim. Sir, what do we tell the crews? Jinha looked at the ancient star map again. At the destroyed human homeworld. At the promises written in blood and starlight. Tell them we're going home? Captain Quan had always thought space was too quiet. Now he wished it was quiet again. His ship, the Retribution, was leading a fleet of 12 vessels toward the Ashara system. They were fast ships, built for fighting, but Quan wasn't sure they would be fast enough. Captain, said his scanner officer, I'm reading the Dauntless. She's alive but damaged. Open a channel. Commander Harin's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired and scared. Behind her, smoke was rising from broken equipment. Quan, thank God you have to turn around right now. What happened? They're not like anything we've ever seen. The ships are alive. They think they adapt. We barely got away. Quan looked at his fleet. 12 ships against an unknown enemy. But they were human ships with human crews. That had to count for something. How many of them are there? Hundreds, maybe more. And Quan know we're coming. They're waiting. Then we'll give them something to wait for. The fleet moved forward. As they got closer to the Ashara system, they could see the dark ships, waiting for them. They were arranged in perfect lines like soldiers on parade, but these soldiers were the size of cities. All ships, battle formation, Quan ordered. Remember, we're not trying to win, we're trying to learn. The first dark ship that moved toward them was beautiful and terrible. It looked like a whale made of metal and bone. But when it opened its mouth, fire came out. The human ships scattered. They were faster than the dark ships, but not by much. And there were so many of them. Quan's ship fired its weapons at the whale ship. The energy beams hit it and bounced off. The whale ship didn't even slow down. Sir, our weapons aren't working. Try the missiles. The missiles hit the whale ship and exploded. For a moment, Quan thought they had heard it, but then the smoke cleared. The whale ship was fine. In fact, it looked like it was healing itself. It's learning, Quan whispered. It's learning how to stop our weapons. More dark ships were coming now. They moved like a pack of wolves surrounding the human fleet. Quan watched his ships get picked off one by one, but something strange was happening. Every time a human ship was destroyed, the crew fought harder. Every time things looked hopeless, the humans found a new way to keep fighting. One ship, the Defiance, was cut in half by a dark ship's energy beam. But the crew didn't give up. They turned the front half into a missile and rammed it into their attacker. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. Another ship, the Unbreakable, lost all its weapons. So the crew started throwing everything they had at the dark ships. Tools, furniture, even their boots. It shouldn't have worked. But somehow it did. The dark ship seemed confused by the randomness of it. Captain, said Quan's weapons officer, I'm reading something strange in my blood. What do you mean? I don't know. It's like something is waking up inside me. I feel stronger. Faster? Quan felt it too. A heat in his chest, spreading through his body. His vision was getting sharper. His thoughts were getting clearer all around him. His crew was changing. Their eyes were brighter. Their movements were quicker. They were becoming something more Then human, sir, look at this. The scanner officer pointed at his screen. The dark ships are slowing down, they're acting confused. It was true. The dark ships were still fighting, but they weren't working together as well. They kept trying to predict what the humans would do next, but the humans weren't following any plan anymore. They were just fighting like wild animals, fighting like they had nothing to lose. All ships, fall back, Quan ordered. We've learned enough. As the human fleet retreated, they carried with them samples of the dark ship's weapons, pieces of the enemy that their scientists could study. But more importantly, they carried something else. They carried the awakening on Earth. Jinha was reading reports that made no sense. The surviving crews from Quan's fleet were all showing signs of genetic change. Their DNA was rewriting itself. Their bodies were adapting to threats they had never faced before. It's impossible, said the chief scientist. Humans don't evolve this fast. Maybe we're not normal humans, Jinha said quietly. He was looking at the ancient files again. At stories of a species that could adapt to anything. A species that got stronger every time something tried to kill them. A species that was bred for war. Sir, said his assistant, we're getting reports from all over human space. People are changing, getting stronger, getting faster, and sir ... they're all asking the same question. What question? When do we fight back? Jinha looked out the window at the ships in orbit. Human ships built by human hands, crewed by human hearts. But now those humans were becoming something new. Something the galaxy had forgotten about. Something the dark ships had been right to fear. Tell them soon, Jinha said. Tell them very soon. In the deep archives, more files were opening. Files that told the real story of humanity. Files that explained why humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. Files that revealed the truth. Humans weren't just another race of peaceful explorers. They were the galaxy's immune system. And the infection had returned. The Kethmori had awakened something they should have left sleeping. They had awakened the humans. 3 months after the first battle, humanity was no longer human. Commander Harin stood in the medical bay of the rebuilt Dauntless. Looking at her reflection in the metal wall, her eyes were brighter now, almost glowing. Her skin was harder, like armor. When she moved, she was faster than any human should be. The changes are happening to everyone, said Dr. Park, the ship's medical officer. Your heart beats twice as fast, but it's stronger. Your bones are denser than steel. Your brain is processing information at impossible speeds. Harin flexed her fingers. She could feel the strength in them, enough strength to crush metal. Are we still human? You're more human than ever. You're what humans were always meant to be. Outside the medical bay, the ship was different too. The walls were growing, not building, growing, like living things. The human crew had started adding pieces of Kethmori technology to their ships, but the technology was changing. It was becoming afraid of them. Commander, called the bridge officer. Admiral Jinha wants to see you. It's urgent. Harin walked to the communication room. When Jinha's face appeared on the screen, she almost didn't recognize him. His hair had turned white, but his face looked younger. His eyes were sharp like a knife. Harin, how are your people? Strong, faster. They don't need as much sleep. Or food, and Admiral ... They're angry. Jinha nodded. Good, we're going to need that anger. I'm sending you the location of a Kethmori scout fleet. 6 ships, I want you to hunt them down. Hunt them, not fight them. Hunt them, make them afraid, make them run. And when they run, follow them. I want to know where they're going. Harin smiled. It was not a nice smile. Understood. The hunt began 3 days later. The Kethmori scout fleet was hiding in the shadow of a dead star. They thought they were safe. They thought wrong. Harin's ship, the Dauntless, came out of the darkness, like a shark. But it wasn't alone. 2 other human ships flanked it, the Predator and the Nightmare. The names were new. Humans were giving their ships new names now, names that meant something. There they are, said the scanner officer. His voice was different. Now deeper, more like a growl. 6 ships, just like the Admiral said. Are they running? Harin asked. Not yet. They're trying to call for help. Jam their signals, then move in slow. I want them to see us coming. The human ships crept closer. The Kethmori ships were big and black, covered in spikes and teeth. They looked like nightmares, but the human ships looked worse. They moved like living things, and their weapons glowed with hunger. The first Kethmori ship turned to run. Harin smiled. Now, she whispered, the human ships exploded into motion. They were faster than anything the Kethmori had ever seen. The Predator caught the first runner and tore it apart with energy claws that shouldn't have existed. The Nightmare wrapped around another ship like a snake and crushed it, but Harin didn't destroy all of them. She let 2 escape. She wanted them to run. She wanted them to tell the others what they had seen. Follow them, she ordered. But stay hidden. Let them think they got away. The 2 surviving Kethmori ships raced through space, calling for help, screaming warnings to their fleet. Behind them, invisible in the darkness, the human ships followed like ghosts. They led the humans to something incredible. My God, whispered the communications officer. Look at the size of that thing. In the distance, floating in space, was a structure so large it blocked out the stars. It was a Kethmori fortress, built from the bones of 1,000 dead worlds. Ships moved around. It like ants around a hill. How many ships? Harin asked. Hundreds, maybe 1,000. Good, now we know where they are. Harin sent the location back to Admiral Jinha. Then she waited. The human fleet was coming. But it wouldn't be the same fleet that had fought and lost 3 months ago. This fleet would be something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Jinha stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Extinction. Around him, his officers moved with perfect coordination. They didn't need to speak anymore. They could sense each other's thoughts. Behind him, stretching out into space, was the human fleet, but calling it a fleet was wrong. It was more like a pack of wolves. Each ship was different now, changed by its crew's personality. Some looked like predators. Others looked like storms made of metal. All of them looked hungry. Admiral, said Captain Quan from his ship, the Vengeance. The scouts report the Kethmori fortress is heavily defended. 1,000 ships, maybe more. How many ships do we have? Jinha asked. 50. That seems fair. Jinha looked at the data on his screen. The Kethmori fortress was called the World Breaker. It had destroyed entire star systems. It was the heart of their invasion fleet. But Jinha wasn't afraid. None of the humans were afraid anymore. Fear was something they had evolved past. All ships, he announced. Today we show the galaxy what humans really are. Today we remind the universe why the Kethmori ran from us in the first place. The attack began at dawn, ship time, the human fleet came out of the darkness like a plague. They didn't fly in formation like normal ships. They moved like a school of fish, like a flock of birds, like a pack of hunting wolves. The Kethmori ships turned to meet them. 1,000 ships against 50. It should have been over in minutes. It was. Just not the way anyone expected. The human ships didn't fight like machines. They fought like animals. The Predator flew straight into the middle of the Kethmori formation and started tearing ships apart with its bare claws. Energy claws that the ship had grown, not built. The Nightmare turned invisible and started attacking from the shadows. Kethmori ships would explode for no reason, torn apart by weapons they couldn't see. The Vengeance grew tentacles and started grabbing enemy ships, pulling them close so it could bite them in half with metal teeth. This is impossible, said Quan's weapons officer. Ships don't grow teeth. Ours do, Quan replied. He was steering his ship by thinking at it, not using controls. The ship responded to his emotions. When he was angry, it moved faster. When he was hungry, its weapons got stronger. Around them, the battle was turning into a massacre. The Kethmori ships were designed to fight other machines. They had no idea how to fight living ships piloted by evolved humans, but the humans had learned something important. They weren't just fighting with their ships. They were fighting with their ship's fear. Every piece of Kethmori technology they had captured was afraid of them. The weapons wouldn't work properly. The armor kept trying to run away. Even the Kethmori computers were starting to rebel against their masters. "Admiral," called Harin from the Dauntless. "The fortress is launching something big. It's the size of a moon." Jinha looked at his screen. The Worldbreaker was opening like a flower, revealing something horrible inside. It was a ship, but it was also alive. It had eyes the size of cities and teeth like mountains. "That's their world killer," Jinha said. "The thing they use to eat planets? Should we retreat?" Jinha smiled. It was the smile of a predator that had just found bigger prey. "No, we're going to do something they won't expect." "What's that?" "We're going to board it." The world killer moved toward the human fleet like a living mountain. Its mouth opened, ready to swallow entire ships. But the humans didn't run. Instead, they flew straight into its mouth. "All ships into the beast," Jinha ordered. "We're not here to kill it, we're here to take it." 50 human ships disappeared into the world killer's mouth. The Kethmori, watching from their fortress, thought the humans had been eaten. They were wrong. Inside the world killer, the real battle was about to begin. Inside the world killer, everything was wrong. Admiral Jinha walked through corridors made of bone and metal. The walls were breathing. The floor was warm and wet under his feet. This wasn't a ship. It was a living creature the size of a moon. Behind him, his crew moved like ghosts. They didn't need lights to see in the darkness. Their eyes glowed softly, cutting through the shadows. They had become perfect hunters. "Admiral," whispered Captain Quan through the communication link. "My team found something. You need to see this." Jinha followed the signal deeper into the creature. The corridors got bigger as they went, until they were walking through spaces large enough for cities. And in those spaces, Jinha saw the truth. The world killer wasn't just a weapon. It was a prison. Millions of creatures floated in glowing pods. They were from 100 different worlds. Some looked like humans, others like nothing Jinha had ever seen. All of them were sleeping, kept alive by the creature systems. "They're food," said Commander Harin, her voice full of disgust. "The world killer keeps them fresh until it's ready to eat them." "Not anymore," Jinha said. He touched one of the pods. Inside, a small creature that looked like a child stirred in its sleep. "We're going to free them all." But first they had to reach the heart. The world killer's heart was at its center, a massive chamber filled with pulsing light. And waiting for them there was the Overmind. Jinha had expected a monster. What he found was something worse: intelligence. The Overmind looked like a tree made of brains. Thousands of minds connected together, thinking as one. It had been alive for millions of years, watching galaxies die, consuming everything in its path. When Jinha entered the heart chamber, the Overmind spoke without words. Its voice appeared directly in his mind. "You are the humans. We remember you." "Good," Jinha said out loud. "Then you remember why you ran." "We did not run. We harvested your galaxy and moved on. You were food, nothing more." "Then why did you spend 4,000 years preparing weapons just for us?" The Overmind was quiet for a moment. Around the chamber, Kethmori warriors materialized from the shadows. They were bigger than the ones Jinha had seen before, covered in armor made from the bones of dead worlds. "Because you were different, you adapted. You survived. You evolved. The Kethmori warriors attacked, but they had made a mistake. They thought they were fighting the same humans from 4,000 years ago. They weren't. In moved like lightning, her hands tearing through alien armor like paper. Quan fought with weapons that grew from his arms, changing shape as he needed them. The other humans flowed around their enemies like water, always moving, always adapting. The Kethmori had prepared for human tactics from the old war. They had no defense against humans who fought like living nightmares. "Impossible," the Overmind whispered. "You cannot have changed this much." "We haven't changed," Jinha said, dodging a warrior's claws. "We've just remembered what we are." He reached the base of the Overmind's tree body. Up close, he could see the individual brains pulsing with thought. Each one had once been a different species, consumed and added to the collective. "You made one mistake," Jinha said, placing his hands on the Overmind's trunk. You thought we were like the others. You thought we would break? What are you doing? Jinha smiled. His hands were getting hot, burning through the Overmind's bark-like skin. We're not destroying you. We're taking you. No, but it was too late. Jinha's touch was changing the Overmind, making it afraid. And fear was something the Kathmori collective had never felt before. The sensation spread through all the connected minds like a virus dot around the galaxy. Every Kathmori ship suddenly stopped. Their crews were experiencing something they had no words for: terror. The hunters were becoming the hunted, and they didn't know how to handle it. You cannot do this. We are eternal. We are inevitable. So are we, Jinha said. The difference is we learn to evolve. The Overmind's screams echoed through the World Killer as its consciousness was pulled apart. But Jinha wasn't destroying it, he was absorbing it. Taking its knowledge, its memories, its understanding of the universe, he learned the truth about the Kathmori. They weren't evil, exactly, they were just old. So old that they had forgotten how to grow, how to change. They had become perfect at consuming, but they had stopped learning. Humans were the opposite. They never stopped learning, never stopped changing. That's what made them dangerous. Please, the Overmind begged. We can coexist, we can share the galaxy. No, Jinha said softly. You had your chance. You should have left us alone. The Overmind died with a sound like breaking glass. But its death wasn't the end. It was a transformation. All of its knowledge, all of its power, flowed into Jinha and his crew. The World Killer shuddered around them. Without the Overmind to control it, the creature was dying. But the humans weren't going to let it die. All teams, to the control nodes, Jinha ordered. We're taking this ship. Across the World Killer, human teams found the creature's nerve centers, but instead of destroying them, they connected to them. The ship's biomechanical systems tried to reject the humans at first, but fear made them weak. Soon, the entire World Killer was under human control, outside. The Kathmori fortress was in chaos. Their fleet was scattered, their commanders were fleeing, and their greatest weapon had turned against them. The World Killer, now controlled by humans, turned its massive guns on the fortress. But it didn't destroy it. Instead, it opened its mouth and began to feed, not on the Kathmori, but on their technology. Every ship it swallowed made it stronger, smarter, more dangerous. Admiral, called Haran from the bridge they had grown, inside the creature's skull, were getting surrender signals from across the Kathmori fleet. Accept their surrender, Jinha said, but make sure they understand the terms. The terms were simple. The Kathmori could live, but they could never hunt again. They would help rebuild the worlds they had destroyed. And they would serve as a warning to anything else in the universe that thought it could prey on the innocent. Some Kathmori accepted, others tried to run. But there was nowhere to run to. The humans had learned to track them across space and time. There was no hiding from evolved humanity. 6 months later, Jinha stood on the bridge of the World Killer, now renamed the Protector. Through the windows he could see the rebuilt Eleni homeworld. The crystal cities were singing again, their music carried by the solar wind. Admiral, said Haran, joining him at the window, we're getting distress calls from the Andromeda galaxy. Something is attacking peaceful species there. What kind of something? Unknown. But the message says they eat light itself. Jinha smiled. Around him his crew was already preparing for another hunt. The humans had found their purpose in the universe. They were the immune system, the antibodies that appeared whenever something threatened life itself. Set course for Andromeda, he ordered. And send a message to Earth? Tell them we're expanding the fleet. What should the message say? Jinha thought of Elder Voss, the Eleni who had sent the first distress call. The old alien had been right. Humans had remembered what they were. They were the species that answered distress calls. The species that kept promises made across thousands of years. Tell them that the Deathworld fleet is hunting again, Jinha said. And this time, we're bringing friends. Across human space, shipyards began building new vessels. But these weren't just human ships, they were combinations of human determination and captured Kathmori technology. Enhanced by the knowledge of a dozen consumed species, the galaxy had forgotten humanity's name once. It wouldn't make that mistake again, because humans weren't just survivors anymore. They weren't just conquerors. They were evolution itself, hunting everything that refused to grow dull, and in the darkness between galaxies, ancient things that had slept for eons began to stir. They had heard the songs of dying Kethmori ships. They knew the hunters had returned. The distress call that had summoned the unstoppable Deathworlder fleet was answered. But it was only the beginning. Humanity had remembered what it meant to be human. Now it was time to teach the universe.